Let's talk a little bit about like giving men the tools or women around how to have that connection. Like when you're on a first date, second date, one question that I love to ask for even first date is like, what is your love language? Because I have a very specific way of communicating and the way I receive love, which
What's yours?
For me, it's acts of service.
Okay.
My parents growing up never really expressed a lot verbally, which also means I've also heard that the way you express love to someone else is the way you receive love. So for me, if I enjoy, if I like someone, it's giving them acts of service. It's not my natural inclination to be verbally affectionate. It's something that I'm working on. And I ask that up front just because I know that can cause so many communication issues.
Yeah.
What's your love language?
So I really feel like you could ask me on a different day and I might have a different answer. I believe in love languages and,
Yes.
I love it as a topic,
Yeah.
but I don't feel like you knew immediately what yours was,
Yeah.
and it's like there's a clear winner. Where I just don't feel that way, but I do like physical touch and words of affirmation.
You can also go back to the way your parents gave you love. Is that something you remember? Like,
Yeah.
this is how I know my dad or my mom.
Yeah, those actually, I feel like big hugging family, big like saying I love you family.
Yep. So touch, words of affection. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, like, who doesn't love a gift, you know?
Sure, but you could. It's gifts it can be confused also with acts of service. So for sure, like if you're giving a Louis Vuitton bag, that's probably just a gift. It's not really thoughtful, but it's a thoughtful gift where they gave you an experience or they gave you like a handwritten note.
Yeah.
That can be acts of service combined as well. So
Yeah.
it does vary.
But I had an ex-boyfriend years ago who was definitely gifts. It was like if there was a problem in the relationship or like things were rocky, it was like gifts. And looking back at his childhood, it was the same. His parents were very material oriented, like maybe he didn't get attention from his parents, but he got a lot of things.
What was his background?
What do you mean?
Like nationality wise?
Oh, white.
Like American?
American, yeah.
Okay. Oh. I would have figured like Russian or something. Here, take this. Stop crying.
No, and it was interesting watching that play out though, like in a relationship.
And you felt that wasn't enough in the end?
It wasn't. I mean, I wouldn't say that was the reason it didn't work out,
Okay.
but it wasn't how I communicated love.
Sure. So love language is my favorite one. What are some other ways that people can build that instant connection and help them communicate better in general and moving forward?
Yeah. So one of the things I notice a lot of my clients get wrong, and again, I have sort of a specific client who I work a lot with, is they tend to be very smart, analytical, technical men. And so one of the things they struggle with is creating chemistry and creating that emotional connection. But they're very good at creating intellectual connections. So they might go on a first date and talk about work and actually be quite good at forming an intellectual connection where the woman leaves the date and it's like, oh, he's a really nice guy and he's really smart, but I didn't see him as a romantic partner.
Right.
So we work on, okay, how can you create more of an emotional connection? Part of that is asking questions like you just discussed that get you talking about things that are more emotional, that are going to make you feel things. Happy. I mean, ideally you don't want to make a woman feel sad on a first date, but just whatever that emotion is and that often means talking about the feelings behind what's going on in your life or what's happening. So like, do you have anything exciting planned this week rather than just like, oh, what did you do this weekend?
Right.
Like what's something exciting or what's something fun? Like strive to get her talking about things that she enjoys. That's from a conversational standpoint. Other ways though is very much physicality and body language. You can have like a really great conversation, but if you're sitting like 4 feet apart, you're leaned back really far, you don't touch her at all on the entire date, like she's probably not going to leave feeling like there was chemistry.
Right.
So you want to lean forward, you want to hold eye contact, usually a little longer than feels natural for most men. You
Not too much.
Yeah. No, I mean, don't like, big eyes and they stare and never break away. But a lot of people have the tendency to not look at the person they're talking to, or to be looking around, or to fiddling with things, and that doesn't show that you're present and that you're connected to them.
Yeah.
So small body language tweaks, like I just mentioned, leaning in, eye contact, looking for opportunities for physical touch, and then paying attention to how she reacts to that and escalating as appropriate, can really make the difference between, oh, you were really nice, but I didn't feel a romantic connection, and the interest in a second date.
Yeah. Give us some details on the physical touch, because that's always, it's also kind of confusing in this day and age.
Yeah.
When do you make the physical touch? Where do you touch her?
Understandably, so many of the men I work with are so fearful of being perceived as creepy that it ends up I conducted some research on creepiness, and that was like, more. Yeah, I have the numbers, I can pull it up, but it was something like 76% of men, and these were ages like 18 to 45 in the US, said that the fear of being perceived as creepy held them back in the way they interacted with women. Meaning they might not approach them, they might not talk to them, they might not touch them, because they were like very fearful of being perceived as creepy. But then when I asked them, okay, what does creepy actually mean to you? They didn't have a clear definition. And so I also did research on, I asked women, okay, what is creepy? What are creepy behaviors you experience, to help, sort of like bridge the gap and like tell guys, like, okay, here's what women think is creepy, like avoid doing these things.
Right. And was there a disparity? Was there, most men thought it was creepy, women were like, oh, it's fine. Like,
well, I would say like, yes, in the sense that men, because they were perceived as being creepy, weren't taking action at all. So approaching a woman is not creepy. Approaching a woman and making a sexual comment is creepy.
Comment, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, or unwanted physical touch, or meeting someone in person and even contacting them on the internet after, like seeking them out, can be perceived as creepy because you didn't ask for that. You didn't ask for her phone number or for her contact when you had the chance, and then you did the online stalking and contacted her that way. That can be perceived as creepy.
You said unwanted physical touch. That's the whole confusion though, right? So,
yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, obviously if you don't know this person, like if you are approaching a woman for the first time, or you're meeting her for the first time, not on a date, it's not appropriate to touch her.
Right.
So, even like I have actually experienced this where it's like I'm meeting someone for the first time, again, not a date, and like he goes for like the cheek kiss, and like while that's totally appropriate in some cultures,
no,
if this is like a total stranger like at a bar, like I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah. It's funny because it's so normal in
Latin
America, Spain.
But I feel like it's also, I mean, this is like not gonna be helpful because it's not like an answer that people can replicate. But like, there's a difference between it being like a natural cultural thing where you're like in Latin America, or like I said, I lived in Argentina, and you're meeting a friend of a friend, and it's very natural to do the cheek kiss, and then like having a guy at a bar who is clearly like looking for something from you, and then like him going for a cheek kiss where it's like, no, like this feels like you are just like invading my personal space.
It's so different because like also my parents, like, I don't know, maybe I got my first like real hug from my mom and like when I was like 17 or 18.
Oh my gosh.
And my ex-girlfriend was Argentinian.
Oh, okay.
So when I went to go see her parents, I was so like blown away.
Yeah, they're like kissing you and touching you.
Hugging, like, her dad was kissing. I was like, oh my God, like I'm blown away. Maybe my love language is actually physical touch.
Yeah.
It just completely changed. But yeah, it's interesting, the disparity between the creepiness, because what I've also heard is that men seem to have a higher, I don't know what's the right way to put it, believability. Like they think that women are more attracted to them than they think. And it's the opposite for women. So when I can see why men would be coming on from his perspective of thinking that might be creepy, whereas for women it may not be, because men generally have this perception that this girl is probably more into me than you think he is. Obviously it depends. Maybe the clientele you work with maybe is a little different.
I was going to say with my clientele,
it's the opposite. Yeah, sure. At least, my circle of friends, I guess I would say. So, but yeah, it seems to be a real stat. There's this disparity of how men think about that.
And what I always tell clients is if you're on a date with this woman, okay, she wants to be there. You're exploring a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
Hands, elbows, shoulders tend to be very safe places to start.
Hands,
hands, elbows, shoulders. So if you are going to reach out and be it's so great to meet you, or like, you know, even like to emphasize a point, like, wow, wow, that's so cool, and you touch her hand, elbow, or shoulder, like that's probably going to be okay. It's not going to make her uncomfortable. And then pay attention. Obviously, like if she pulls her hand back or like leans back, like, okay, don't escalate. But if she keeps her hand there and you have your hand on her hand, like that's a good sign. Same thing with leaning in. Lean in, look into her eyes. Is she leaning back? Okay, like stop there. But if she's leaning in as well, that's again a good sign.
Yeah. So the step before that is obviously the approach. And I feel like that's where guys get stuck.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like going skydiving, and then it's like, it's not really just flying. That's the hard part. It's making
the jumping out of the
leap
airplane.
to jump, right? And it's easier if you go with like a professional that pushes you. But if you're going by yourself or you're going bungee jumping, that's why bungee jumping is supposed to be a lot harder, apparently, for
I would never
skydiving.
bungee jump.
Yeah, because you're the one that's making yourself jump, right?
Yeah.
It's the psychology of it. And it's the same with the approach. It's, what do you say? It's, is this person single, married? Is this, you know, I heard you wear like 2 rings just in case. Like, that must be how bad it is for people.
No, this is strictly for the internet. You know, like I'm in my Instagram reels, and I just happen to have 2 rings. But it is funny because like the number of DMs I get, and like one of the things I say about approaching women in person or online is you want to qualify first. Like do a brief scan if it makes sense. If she has a wedding ring on, like that's probably like not a good person to approach. And like the number of DMs I get, they're like, so like you single? And like, which is not a good DM to send a woman, even if she is single.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, if you just like looked at my hands in any of my videos.
Yeah. So going back to the approaches, when this is all in person, obviously.
Yeah.
For now, we can talk about the apps after as well. That's the hard part, right? Is this person busy also? Like, where are they going? Is there some, I don't want to say formula because it's not a script.
No, but there
or anything,
is.
right?
There is.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So first of all, approaching, I want to just like reassure guys out there, single women want to be approached. I surveyed 13,000 single women, and I was really surprised by the numbers, but I knew women wanted to be approached, but 95% of single women said they wished they were approached more. And 98% of women said they would rather meet their boyfriend in person than on a dating app.
For sure, yeah.
So first of all, so just guys, be approaching the ladies. They want it. But not all approaches are created equal. So you need to understand the environments that are good for approaching and not good for approaching. And then again, you don't necessarily want a script that you're reading from because that's going to come off as inauthentic and be a turn off and feel, usually robotic if you're reciting somebody else's lines. But have some things to fall back on, some openers, some intros that are just really simple. I think that's the thing guys get wrong is they think they need this like witty, funny, perfect line. And that's just not true. It can literally be as simple as like you noticed you made eye contact with a woman, walk up to her and say like, I think we made eye contact before, so I wanted to come introduce myself. What's your name?
That's simple.
That simple.
Wow.
And you'll be able to tell relatively quickly if she's receptive to this or not.
Sure.
Is she smiling? Is her body language facing towards you? Is she asking you questions back? Those are all great. Those are the green lights. Is she, does she have her headphone like one out and like looking at you like, what? And like, answering very short. Okay, that's a sign like, nice. Well, it was nice to say hello, nice to meet you, and move on. It's okay. And the other thing that guys often get wrong is going in and wanting to get the phone number. You should not be approaching with the objective of getting a phone number. You should be approaching with the objective of getting to know this person. Then if she proves to you, okay, she seems interesting. She seems like someone I want to get to know more. She seems like she's single and also interested in me.
Right.
Then you can ask for the phone number.
Right.
But if you aren't getting those green or even yellow lights, then nice to meet you and move on.
That's so true about the phone number part is so many guys where they're at a bar and they're with friends. The whole thing is an ego thing, right? So yeah, of course you're interested in the girl, but you don't want to come back to your guy friends without some sort of proof that that she wants you or whatever it might be. and they don't even focus on the conversation. So then they kind of just go for the kill, right?
Exactly.
And
Like
then-
trying to impress other people or not, I think like they're thinking one step ahead and that gets in the way.
Right. And then, yeah, they might be nice and give you the phone number, but then she'll never contact you again.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
hear that. It's like, well, she gave me her phone number. Why didn't she text me back? And it's like, well, did you create a connection before you asked? Sometimes for women, it's just easier to say yes and give the phone number. But if you haven't created a compelling reason that she wants to stay in touch with you or she wants to go on a date with you, it's not going to actually lead to the date, which is the ultimate goal.
Yeah. These days, it seems to be like getting their Instagram or, you know, other ways of getting in contact and then just DMing. What are your thoughts on like taking a old school approach, which is like getting the phone number on like the back of a napkin and then actually calling them? Because otherwise, I feel like you're dealing with the dating app issue, which is you're one of the many other guys or girls that is just in this little text box versus calling them feels like it's just old school and it's more memorable.
Yeah. So I don't know about the phone call.
Yeah.
That maybe it's taking a little too old school.
You think so?
But I definitely like the phone number and then the text message because you're absolutely right. You're one of a million
Yeah.
on Instagram. And I think the more mature, intentional route is to ask for the phone number. And then the only reason I have nothing against a phone call, but because it can be surprising and not what most people do, they might be more inclined to be like, not answer. Like, why is this person calling me?
Sure,
So
yeah.
sending a follow-up text message, in my experience, is just the most reliable route.
Yeah.